Hey, Orion here. I've been podcasting for over 4 years now. 4 years. I started a bit unsure and insecure, but I am so much better and I'm a different woman today. I learned and grew so much. I grew as a person and I grew as a podcast host. And I had the privilege of talking with incredible people I never even imagined I can even reach. But regardless of how famous or not famous my guest is, sometimes you have a special conversation. One that is so stellar, you remember it even 4 years later. Welcome to Stellar Conversations. This is one of my absolute favorite episodes, and it will light up your day.
Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Get inspired and live out loud. From love, freedom, and success to having it all. Here's your host, coach, speaker, and shining star, Orion.
Roger, you're looking good.
Hello! Did you know that 55% of people watch videos online every day? You are probably one of them. Video is the way of the future. Video consumption is increasing and it's spreading across all social media platforms. This is why I have my guest today. His name is Sean Cannell. He is a YouTube expert. He helps and teaches influencers how to go further faster with social media and video. Sean has built multiple successful brands online. He is a best-selling author and creator of Video Ranking Academy. He will teach you all about video. And there's so much knowledge and information. So I highly recommend you follow him and learn from him. And now, without further ado, on to the show.
2, 1, 0.
Hi, Sean, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, Orion. I'm super pumped to be here and to be talking about video.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be talking to you. I found you on, YouTube. I thought you were amazing. I just think that you're brilliant. And I think that everybody that is listening to this show is going to learn something really important to their business, for their business.
I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. And yeah, my passion is to help entrepreneurs crush it in every area, but especially leverage video to really grow their influence, their income, and their impact. And so I'm excited to be hanging out with you and your community today.
Yeah. So something we both have in common is that we both like The Flash.
Yeah, that's true. The show, right?
Yeah, the show.
Absolutely. In fact, I guess we're getting really honest and transparent right away, but that's one of the only shows that actually makes me cry.
No.
I don't know if that ever happens to you, but yeah, for real, it causes me to tear up, and it's not that emotional really, or it's kind of comic booky, but for some reason that show really pulls my heartstrings.
That's amazing. Well, no, it doesn't make me cry, but I just like it. I like anything superhero. I'm obsessed.
Yeah, there you go. As far as a masculine opening, that one will take the prize right there. Sean cries during The Flash.
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know that you have a very interesting story. I know that life wasn't always easy, and it's almost like you have your own hero's journey. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think probably a lot of times where I pick up is where I started when I got into video, and that was in 2003. And of course, around the time I was about 20, 21, and I was volunteering at my local church. And so the youth pastor handed me a video camera and some editing software and said, "Hey, start making videos." And Orion, I hope you never see these. Maybe for some comedy, but these original videos are so bad. But I always encourage people, because your first videos are always going to be your worst videos. And that's true for anything. I mean, day one, walking into the gym, you don't have the results yet, right? It takes time. But I got started with video then. And what I actually did was I was doing weekly video announcements and learning the discipline of doing that. And that was one of the big life-changing things that happened to me in 2003, because now it's what I do today full time and what I help entrepreneurs do. But the other life-changing thing that happened to me then was I also met my wife, Sonia, and she was a Starbucks barista. And true story, I actually realized she was into running. Now, at the time, I wasn't at all into running. But what I did was once I knew that fact, I got an idea. If you ever get an idea, I definitely had one. And I thought, what if I walked in with some running clothes on? Perhaps that would trigger some conversation. And sure enough, it did. So she sees me walk up to the counter and she goes, "Oh, you're into running?" And I was like, "Clearly. I mean, as you can see, I am." And she goes, "Hey, we should go jogging sometime." And that was actually like our first date.
Wow.
And the rest is history. Got married 2005. And we actually got married. I think I was much younger then. We got married around 21. We were each 21. And, when you're young, you're dreaming big. And she was working multiple jobs to kind of help support the dream because I wanted to do some stuff on the side. Plus, I was doing ministry volunteer. So wasn't making much there, waiting tables and just kind of getting into things. But 2 years later, she went on a trip to the Philippines with our church and got very sick. And we actually didn't know what it was. In fact, for 2 years, she started dropping weight. She started actually throwing up multiple times a day.
Wow.
And dropping weight and eventually dropped to 82 pounds. She almost died. Had to get a jejunum feeding tube to try to get her weight back up. But the other thing we were going through was just this mystery of what's happening. And talk about an emotional roller coaster. A lot of doctors even were saying, well, why don't you just eat more? And kind of accusing her of being anorexic, bulimic.
Oh, wow. That's horrible.
Yeah, it wasn't actually until 2007 that we actually got some answers. We were going to hospitals that were kind of in rural areas, and eventually we made it into the heart of Seattle. We were living in the Northwest at the time, to a specialist, gastroenterologist, and had her eat some radioactive eggs to watch her digestion, and saw, oh, sure enough, you have slow digestion. It's called gastroparesis, paralysis of the stomach. And so today she actually has a pacemaker. It's called a gastric stimulator, but it's for your stomach, not your heart, right? And it stimulates your stomach with electrodes. So it's just a crazy season. And you mentioned, that hero's journey. It was also when that was hitting us, so was everything else. It was around 2000, like I said, 7 that we kind of got those answers and we're going through these health challenges. She is progressively losing energy. So those multiple jobs she was working are not happening anymore. I'm wondering how I'm going to provide for my family. And the housing crisis was also happening. And we had actually bought in a couple houses because we had this dual income thing going. We thought it would be a good investment. That crashes. Tenants can't pay rent. They're losing their jobs. So we default on a house. The house we're living in, we can't afford. And there's the health challenges, the job challenges. Actually, some stuff happened with the senior leadership in our church. People you would trust, people you looked up to, people you respected, that you're like, whoa, I guess. And everyone's flawed, but you never want to see leaders fall, if you will. There were some financial issues of mishandling of money. So we're literally in this season like, my gosh, like, God, why is this happening in our life? What are we going to do? And especially as a leader myself, it really caused me to be like, how am I going to provide for my family? What am I going to do in the future? Our family dynamics are changing now. How are we going to raise kids? And it was actually really out of that time, I've kind of learned, right? And I'm sure you could relate to this, that oftentimes it's out of the hardest seasons of our life that some of the greatest things can happen.
I always say that.
Absolutely.
I look at my tough times and I'm like, that was my greatest gift. Without what I've been through, I would never be the woman that I am today, the leader that I am today. And I would never be able to help people on that level.
100%. And it was in that moment where I also began to think, okay, I need to create a business around a lifestyle. I was starting to read, study. People are making passive income. People are creating income online, and they're creating income that's highly leveraged, meaning you work once, but then you can get paid without working, passive income, things like that, multiple streams of income. And so kind of desperation, vision, all of that was really being birthed then. And now years later, that's the reality we're experiencing, definitely experiencing the leverage of the internet, of YouTube, of even to the simple fact that right now on Think Media, one of our main YouTube channels, about 1,800 people view our videos every 60 minutes.
My God.
Yeah, it's crazy. So the channel's growing at about 15,000 subscribers a month. Now, it took a lot of work. It's work that started back then in around 2010, but it's so highly leveraged because whether we post new videos or not, and we could talk about some of these tips later, but we get views while you snooze. You get this passive traffic, and it's the same for any business. Of course, there's people who want to be YouTubers, but every business needs traffic. Every business needs awareness. And these are people seeing strategic videos that then lead into our funnels, into other areas of our business. And so anyways, it really was that season that put so many different challenges, but that also really forged in us a vision to create a business around a lifestyle, as well as things like empathy, compassion, so many different things that it transformed me as just a husband, as a leader, made us stronger in our relationship and in our marriage, and also helped us just kind of relate, I think, to the greater struggle that all of us as humans go through. You know, when you're 21 and even when we got married a few years later, we're like 23, you feel invincible. Most people do. If you haven't gone through anything major, you don't expect something like that to happen in your life. But I feel like it aged us up pretty quick as far as wisdom and life experience, because we got put into such a crucible of challenges for a young couple. But yeah, we definitely came out better on the other side.
This is a friendly reminder for you to visit www.stellarlifepodcast.com for show notes and information about this awesome show. Check out our Facebook group, Stellar Life. Sorry, boys, this is for women only. And get all information, including a checklist full of tips from the show at www.stellarlifepodcast.com. And if you're enjoying yourself, please subscribe and review. And now, back to the show. So you touched a little bit about how it changed you as a person. Maybe you can go a little deeper, like going from this dark, super dark place to the awesome success that you're experiencing today. Who are you today compared to when you were 21?
I mean, a lot of things. I would say humility is a major one. I think when you're 21, again, all I knew was I myself have been relatively healthy throughout my life. And like I said, kind of feeling invincible. I feel like I couldn't relate to people who have been through, maybe whether that was health challenges, that had been through these things, because I hadn't really experienced them. In fact, and we could even go into the fact that I didn't experience much death in my life. I still really haven't, a few grandparents who I've loved dearly. But I would just say that I was more or less shielded. Like you said, it's our circumstances that shape us. And I hadn't experienced anything major. So I really began to not just empathize with my wife, but I began to see people and see other people and see, if you will, maybe people that are more marginalized, people that are going through, whether that is health challenges, and having a greater compassion for sure, greater empathy for sure. Sonia is my wife's name, and that's one thing she's noticed in me. I didn't have that before. So I'm for sure a better human being on the other side of that. The other thing I think is gratitude.
Yes.
And the opposite of gratitude, I think, can be taking things for granted. And again, I think that generally I thought, well, number one, not only were we young, but you also just feel like we've got time. We're going to feel this way forever. Life is, sure, there'll be ups and downs, but these are the way things are going to be. And then you just kind of realize that at the end of the day, life is really uncertain. We're never really guaranteed tomorrow. And so it gave me a couple things. One, we've been through such hard times that even just the reality we're in now, of course, my wife still has health challenges. We're still working through issues of maybe how we want to have kids. Right now, we don't have kids yet. There's certain elements that are affecting whether us starting a family, we're considering adoption, all these types of things like that. And so gratitude, just immense gratitude, where I just think, man, what we've been through. And even Sonia will say too, while gastroparesis is awful, it's horrible. We just began to see, well, some people maybe only have a few days left to live. And there's a lot of people like that. Around the world, globally, of course, not all of us have the reality of course, even close to what us in America. We live in Las Vegas, Nevada. So, of course, just the reality here, it just completely, I think, humbled us and forged a deep gratitude for just every moment, every day we get to spend together, every blessing that we have in our life, the opportunity to just live, just to go out, spend time together, watch Netflix together.
Watch The Flash together.
Yeah, tomorrow is really not guaranteed. And so I think absolutely gratitude was huge. And, part of my journey too was being a pastor. I was, like I said, I was volunteering in church and then eventually was in ministry for many years and was overseeing a campus for a while. And I don't actually think that could have even been part of my story had it not been going through that, because what's a pastor's job? To be able to
relate and connect,
relate with people, stand with people through grief, loss, through the dark times and not just the good times. Most people don't start thinking about God in the good times. It's actually in the hard times that you begin to have those types of deeper spiritual questions and all these types of things. And so it's pretty amazing how there's actually a verse that talks about how God works all things to the good for those that love him. And I really believe that. And even though it's crazy that it's not like the pain wasn't there, or even that there isn't present challenges and suffering that you still may be going through, but that we can see God weaving his grace throughout the different seasons and stages of our life.
Amen. Amen. I can totally relate. We have similar values. And, I just came back from a trip to India, and I was in the car. We were driving to the hotel just as we got there, and there was this little girl knocking on the window, and I will never forget, like, big, deep eyes. And she's like knocking on the window and yelling for us to give her something, to give her money. But you can't really give those kids money because they are employed by the adults. If you give them money, you just support the industry. So usually you only give them food. And if you give them food, like if you have, let's say, a package of cookies, you want to open it, because if it's not open, they will go and sell it, even though they're hungry. So, wow, I'll never forget her face. And after that experience, because we didn't have anything to give her and it happened really quickly, I always carried some apples and food on me so I can give the children. It humbles you to go to those places and just see that we have so much abundance in our lives.
I totally agree. And life really is a gift, and every moment's a gift. And like we said, we don't know if we'll have tomorrow, but if you're hearing this podcast, we're talking together right now, we do have right now. And that's probably the final thing too. I think it helped me be a lot more present and to slow down a little bit. Again, especially I'm 34 now. I just turned 34.
You speak like you're 54. When I was young.
Yeah, I don't like it's
not that 54 is old, but you're like, you're referring to your 21-year-old as so young.
That is kind of funny, but it feels like we've been through a lot. But what is funny is, life is totally a gift. But when you're young, you're going so fast. And sometimes almost like we've all been around people who maybe you're at a networking party or something, and they're scanning the room. Nobody wants to be around that person. They're talking to you, but they're thinking about their next conversation.
Oh, God, I don't like those people at all. Oh, I'm looking at those people, and in my mind, I'm like, if you just knew who I am,
sure,
you wouldn't scan the room right now. It's your loss.
You're totally right. And every human being deserves, I believe, care and respect and to be valued in that moment. But me, again, when I was younger, I was probably that person that was just in a rush, just caffeinated,
yes.
Always on to the next thing. And again, when you really slow down to just be present, and that is, I think, one of also the greatest gifts, to be able to just take time in life to be present, be in the moment, be with the people who matter most to you, especially knowing that tomorrow is not guaranteed, but we have right now. And to really embrace and really love people moment by moment. Of course, I'm still a work in progress, and we still have those times where we're frantic or distracted or selfish.
We all are. I have a question. This is like the last kind of like self-development question.
Sure. Because
I really want to dive into YouTube, because I know you're so freaking brilliant, and I have so many questions that I'm sure I won't be able to cover in this episode. But I'm looking at you, your success, what you've been through. Who were your teachers? Because we all had like amazing teachers that directed us.
So many I could think of, and I'll keep it brief just because there's kind of a list. That first teacher was back in 2003 when I got into video. It was Jeff Morris and David Luster were actually kind of like the youth pastors at the time. And when I was interning, I started spending a lot of time with them because I had work to do. So we drive around and visit schools and work on projects in our community and work on youth group. And just being around them, it was awesome to have mentors that were a few years older and just poured their life, and not just life and principles, but I do think there is something so powerful. And I'm probably guilty of this. As adults, we get so busy and we get into our own world. But I have learned, I guess I wasn't really a kid, but I've learned that the way that children spell love is Time. And so their time that they invested in me, listening to me, probably listening to me complain about, life, complain about being busy. And I, of course, no kids, single 19-year-old when I met them, tons of times on my hand, playing video games or whatever else that I'm doing, telling them how I don't have time. But just thinking about their patience, their mentorship, how they poured into my life, they absolutely shaped my life. And then a lot of the leaders in the church over the years, I went to kind of a Bible college internship that was in our local church there, but there were some sessions that were taught there, things like strategic advance. That was one of the courses. And it taught us about strategy, about planning, about not just going for a project just haphazardly and shooting from the hip, but really planning. I've learned that prior planning prevents poor performance.
There's a lot of P's in that sentence.
That was a lot of P's.
It's explosive.
Yeah, good thing I've got a pop filter on my mic here because all these plosives as well would be popping in people's ears. But yeah, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so strategic advance, that course, a lot of leadership courses, and that helped me. And then in present day, eventually I went to do a marketing director position. I did director of communications, what it was called, at a larger church in Vegas. The lead pastor there is Benny Perez. And he's actually one of the top communicators, especially in the faith world, but even outside of that, speaks around the world. And so being there, I think sometimes there's things that are more caught than even taught.
That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have the ability to be in the presence of greatness or the presence of people that have mastery in their skill, they've done their 10,000 hours or their 20 or 30 or 40,000 hours. And that's actually probably one of maybe a principle of self-development was I was intentional to get in the proximity of people I wanted to learn from. And whether that meant working for free, doing internships, interviewing people. I've interviewed hundreds of people. I think over 400 people now. We've done different projects, different, like whether that's authors, speakers. These days it's YouTubers, video influencers, but just learning that when you get around people. And so that whole season there was massive and really caused me to level up, and actually being a part of a larger organization and kind of getting out of a small town. I always tell people, never let your small town make you small-minded, or never let your small business make you small-minded. And I've learned that sometimes it takes a location change, an environmental change, to get you into an environment that can really pull the greatness out of you and that next level out of you. And being a part of, it's called the Church LV in Vegas, being a part of that, working there and being on staff there, definitely did that. And then the final ones are more recent. This is probably the last kind of season is Chalene Johnson, Brett Johnson, pretty well-known social media influencers. Chalene's a New York Times bestselling author and has done she holds the world record for the most fitness DVDs ever sold, fitness infomercials.
Wow.
Pio, Turbo Jam, Turbo Kick. You can see the Pio infomercial on at night on your local cable station, but she also teaches social media and business development. And over the years, learning from them, and there's so many, we could go into the list, but these are actually people who I've ended up kind of getting closer with in life, but always podcasts, books, the entire time, ever since the beginning, books, podcasts, courses, always investing in myself. Like Warren Buffett says, the best investment you can ever make is actually an investment in yourself. And so I've wanted the highest returns out of my life and my skills and personal. So I've invested, but they have been mentors, not just through their podcasts or courses, but now we spend time together and I can reach out to them. And I'm also an ambassador in her Marketing Impact Academy as well, teaching business development and social media.
Lucky her. Okay, let's talk YouTube. Oh my God. So I'm trying to get on YouTube for the last 4 years. I didn't get my ass on YouTube yet. Like, I have a channel that is redunculous. Like, there is no investment there. I don't know why I'm like so scared of YouTube, even though I do videos on Facebook and I feel comfortable doing them. I don't know. YouTube, it seems like such a big world. And I've heard your webinar and you're talking about the cliche that people think that it's too late. I still feel like it's a little too late. I see the early YouTubers and now they have massive success. And I know that there are billions of people that are coming online, but it just seems like, I don't know. It seems a little scary. Can you help me with that?
Absolutely. I mean, people ask all the time, when was the best time to start YouTube? And the answer to that is 2005 when YouTube started. I mean, no question. Like if you could have been there at the beginning, but that question's irrelevant now, isn't it? And the second question is, well, when is the second best time to start YouTube? And the answer is
no.
Today.
Well, not now. Now listen to the podcast and then start your YouTube.
Whatever now is for you, whenever you're hearing this, now is definitely the best time. And at the end of the day, I mean, I grew up in Seattle, as I mentioned, a small town an hour north, but the Northwest, home of Microsoft, Boeing, and Starbucks. And I actually remember the first Starbucks. Starbucks used to not actually brew coffee. They just roasted beans and you could just buy the beans. Downtown Seattle, they had a store there, you know, the original store. Well, now everybody knows Starbucks, global, this massive company. And one question you could ask was, when Starbucks started, was there nobody else doing coffee? Like, is that how they did it? Because
okay, that's a good story. I got it.
everyone was selling coffee. There's Seattle's Best and Pete's and all these other brands, but they came out and they did it. And that happens in every industry all the time. It could be retail, it could be food, services, it could be anything. And so is there a point where markets get saturated and things can be more challenging? Yes. But as Gary Vaynerchuk says, cream always rises to the top no matter how many cups of coffee you pour.
Nice.
And so if you have your cream, whatever that is, that's your content, your unique positioning, I think that anybody at any time can still rise on YouTube. And here's the other good news. It's still so early. I mean, at the end of the day, YouTube is about 12 years old. And if anybody listening is a parent, I think they would know that their 12-year-old is not fully mature yet, is not fully making the best decisions yet, is not in that full state of maturity yet. And so YouTube's still growing. It's still, I would say, getting its footing, even though it's a major player. And so it's absolutely a great time to be on YouTube. The one quote that I think people should consider if they're starting YouTube from scratch today is a quote by Sally Hogstead, who wrote the book Fascinate. And she said that different is better than better. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good one to think about for social media, just for business in general. As entrepreneurs and business owners, you're supposed to have your unique selling proposition. For Starbucks, was it that they had the best coffee? Well, they might think so, but most people that love coffee would agree it's not the best. But how are they different? Well, they created the third place. They created a modern, hip, chic place that people would want to go to and hang out at, that wasn't a club, that wasn't a bar, but that was a place where you could get Wi-Fi, drink coffee, eat good food. It could be the same store to store to store, whatever. It was different. It was still coffee, but it was different. If you want to start YouTube today, what I'd be looking for is, how can you be different? Different is better than better. What you don't want to do is look at someone on YouTube and say, that's the show I want to start. I want my content to be like that. How about I just do what they're doing? Well, number one, they're already doing it. Number two, they've already been doing it for a while. And number three, you'll be the worst Marie Forleo. You'll be the worst Oprah. You'll be the worst Mel Robbins, whatever female, maybe entrepreneur, but you're going to be the best you. Like, there is no other Orion that can be as good at being Orion as Orion.
That makes sense.
It's a fact. You're the greatest.
I am. And you are the greatest too.
And I'm the greatest Sean. Yeah.
You are the greatest Sean.
I can't be Gary Vaynerchuk or Casey Neistat or some of the people that I look up to, say, in the YouTube space, but I can be myself. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably one of my biggest tips, that at least from a foundational point, different is better than better. How can you be you times two, be you all in, and really share your voice, your unique perspective? And here's like a small tweak to sometimes how that could look. It doesn't have to be this profound difference. We started a channel sharing YouTube tips. And to be honest, we're not the first YouTube teachers on YouTube or online. Benji and I, who started Video Influencers, one of our projects. But what we saw a couple gaps in the space. All of our competitors are also our friends, people like Tim Schmoyer, Daryl Eves, Owen Hemsath. There's so many, Sunderlander Doozy. We know them all. And they're friends of ours, but they're also our competitors. But what we saw was, okay, couple things. Number one, nobody actually has an interview show of video influencers. Like, no one is interviewing the YouTubers and the entrepreneurs that are using video, whether that's Instagram, Facebook video, stories on Snapchat and Instagram.
That's brilliant for JV and marketing also.
And it wasn't even really a new idea. I knew people like your show. The interview model had been done for years on podcasts, even other YouTube shows, but no one had started a weekly interview show of video influencers. So we're like, this is crazy that this small tweak in our industry has not happened. But if we plant our flag and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We help you build your influence, income, and impact with online video. And you can expect a weekly interview show of today's top video influencers. Not only did that help us grow because of the association and if you tweet and retweet and all those types of things, but also it's just a little bit different. And then also subtle things like a lot of the people that were creating content, they didn't have our same background. The style, I would say, of at least some of our content is influenced by kind of a West Coast. The music is sort of a hip hop, the kind of music or alternative or even EDM subtle tracks that you would maybe hear in like a skateboarding video or a snowboarding video and things like that. That's what I grew up with. Definitely more of an LA or even a coastal influence. And some of the other creators didn't have that same style. So even though we were doing similar content, it had our unique vibe to it. I like to say that your vibe attracts your tribe.
I knew it because it's rhymes.
Exactly,
and
right?
I'm good at rhyming.
Yeah, you're a rapper. I mean, that's what's exciting is you have this whole rap career right, that you haven't tapped into yet. Maybe that's your YouTube channel that you should start. Maybe it's a hip hop, just kidding. Or unless there's something I don't ultimately know about you secretly that you have a mixtape that's about to come out. But
I have a lot of secrets, Sean. I have so many that if I'll tell you some of them, I'll have to... Let's talk about my YouTube channel.
All right.
So how important is the channel's name? How do you even, like, when you just start a YouTube channel, how do you plan? You talked about planning and strategizing. How do you even plan to start? Where do you find the content? How do you make your cream the best? There are so many questions. There is the SEO of the YouTube channel, and then there is the editing, and then there is the creating of the graphics. It just seems like so much work, and there is so much that has to go into it.
I would agree. There is a lot that goes into it, but there's a lot that goes into accounting. And that's why people go to school for it and they learn it and then they eventually do it. And so I think it's just chunking things down, doing them one by one. And it is a skill set. And that's why I'm in business, right? Because people are like, whoa, I need to learn this skill set and the different nuances that go into the video. But let's go back to your question. How do you name your channel? There's really two options. I honestly think that you should name it your first and last name.
Really?
Well, and it depends. It depends on your vision. If it's not your first and last name, in my opinion, it's a project. Mm-hmm. If it's your first and last name, it's a personal brand. It's going to live with you forever. So I look at YouTube channels, Chalene Johnson, Tony Robbins, Eric Worre, he's in network marketing, Casey Neistat, Gary Vaynerchuk, Lewis Howes, Marie Forleo, first and last name, personal brands. And whatever they do, wherever they go, what they know is their first and last name will go with them. Mm. And so the content they put out there, even if it changes over the years, I think about, again, my mentor, Chalene Johnson. She's had fitness content. She teaches social media. She just launched a revolutionary diet called the 313 diet. It's actually a non-diet. Anyways, the 313 diet, that's a project. That YouTube channel is her first and last name. And she can talk about her fitness projects. She can talk about business development, personal development. She can talk about this new diet, and it's all underneath her name. Now, if you were to launch the Stellar Life, you could do that, but it's going to be a little more narrow. It's going to be a project, that's a YouTube channel that maybe is defined with it's a weekly interview show or weekly videos from you. And so that's your option.
Yeah. Right now, my channel is Orion's Method.
Okay. Yeah. So
does it have to be Orion Talmay?
That's fine. That works too. At the end of the day, I think we can overthink some of these things, but there is something about starting with the end in mind. And so that's just like Stephen Covey in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People as being one of those habits is really, where do you want this to go? What do you want it to do for you?
Right.
And what would winning look like at the end of it? Would you want to have, and besides maybe making money and driving business results, and even like potentially gaining a following, what would actually the work look like? What mature, completed YouTube channel and the library of videos that's there, what would that look like? Spending some time thinking about that. I think Marie Forleo is a great example because she's been doing Marie TV for 5 years. Mm-hmm. So she's been doing this weekly show. She's kind of like the Oprah of YouTube, but she started and she stuck with it. And now she's built up a body of work, a body of episodes, a lot of influence. that's actually kind of a hack that I like to do is either pick a person or pick 3 people and say, I'm not really sure where I'm going, but where I want to go with this is as if these 3 characters had a child. That's what I hope my YouTube channel is like. I want my YouTube channel. I mentioned Casey Neistat, kind of a creative vlogger, filmmaker. I like his vibe. I don't want to be a vlogger, but I would like if my YouTube channel eventually was a hybrid, as if Gary Vaynerchuk, Casey Neistat, and Shalene Johnson or Lewis House, some of my business mentors, Brendan Burchard, if they all had a child, then that's kind of that's where I want to go. But that's actually a lot of clarity.
It's gonna be a good looking child.
It'd be a great looking child. But it gives you at least a North Star. So I think that's a great tip. Then the second thing is at the end of the day, and this is true for any social media platform, I think you should just have a napkin content strategy. Some people start talking about content strategies and content calendars, and it's crazy. They're like, it needs to be this 10-page business plan. And you could do that, but let's just actually flip to Instagram for total simplicity. Instagram's a great place to be building your influence right now. And so here's my napkin strategy for Instagram. My Instagram account, Sean Cannell, is going to be 90% business related content, meaning tips about video, things that are related to our tribe that we're serving, anybody that wants to learn how to build their influence with video, 10% personal content. And the goal for right now is to post at least once a day. Done. Write it on a napkin. So your YouTube channel, who's it serving? How often are you going to post? I suggest once a week. And what kind of content, at least generally, is that going to be? Well, at this point, your channel could be life transformation. It could be fitness things. It could be whatever. But you actually have a ton of vision even with this show. So if it's just along the themes of the show, then you pretty much have clarity. You're like, okay, here's what the channel's called. I need to post a video a week because that's my content strategy on the napkin. And this is the type of content that is going to be included in that video. And that's enough to get started. I mean, yeah, there's other questions, but so much happens. We learn by doing, we learn as we go. And it's never going to be right at the start. You got to start before you're ready. Done is better than perfect. And then you just tweak along the way. Small tweaks lead to giant peaks. And you got to just get started. I'm kind of like a meme or just all these rhyming like phrases on this podcast. I want to roll.
That's great. You know what? Like this makes you a really good speaker. It's one of the tips that I got for speaking, that you have to have those little anecdotes, those little sentences that people remember forever. And you do it all the time. You're great. Keep going.
I appreciate that. So I would do that. And then the 2 things you want to define that, and this is for any YouTube channel, is number 1, who is your target audience? This also can really go back to different is better than better. And here's why. You're helping people with personal development, one of the aspects. Well, a lot of people are. I mean, let's be real. There's a lot of people that are in that space. But one thing that immediately makes you different is I think about a friend of mine, Caleb Maddox, who is, I'm not sure how old he is, very young speaker, is speaking all over the world, traveling, crushing it, built a 6-figure business. I actually want to look up how old he is. He wrote a book, though, Success Tips for Kids. Now, he'll speak in a lot of different events and he'll speak to adults too. But he specifically, 14-year-old entrepreneur. So maybe he's about 15 right now. He's been on shows. He's been on I think Good Morning America, all these different things. But he wrote a book and it's success tips for kids. So his target audience is a certain age, certain demographic. It's keys to success for kids. So even though he's teaching success tips, his audience is different. Mm-hmm. I've seen when people say, you're helping a lot of female entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. Well, that's different. You just cut off half the population, mostly with that target. That's a good thing. If you try to reach everybody, you end up reaching nobody.
And by empowering this half of the population, I'm empowering the other half even more.
100%. And so if not just you, but anybody listening, who is your target audience? And you want that to be narrow. On my team, Heather, she does operations for our business. She also runs a YouTube channel on the side and she's crushing it. It's growing like crazy. It's a homeschooling channel. The target audience is homeschooling moms. And so not is it only just females, but it's also moms because you can't really homeschool kids. It's harder to do if you don't have kids. So it's a mom. It's homeschool. Now it's also going to be around her age. And so I think 25 to 35, maybe 40. And you can see a lot of those demographics usually in your analytics. What we see from social media analytics is a lot of times the people we influence the most are the people who are most like us. Mm-hmm. And of course we will impact the fringes. But I see that 25 to 35-year-old males are who seem to resonate with my content the most, even while across the board, we definitely probably serve all ages, genders, etc. That's where the strength is. And so when you really hone in on that target audience, sometimes makes it feel like you're being limited, but it won't end up actually limiting you. But what it does is it helps you make sense in the world. So you really want to say, okay, I know who my target audience is. Then you know a lot of things. You know who you're speaking to in the videos. Not only who you're speaking to on the other side of the lens, but even how to speak to them. I think you should say it, like at times, especially if it's appropriate. This channel is all about helping female entrepreneurs, or maybe millennial female entrepreneurs, live their best life and grow the best business they can. Now we're getting somewhere. So really, number one, define your target audience. And then number two, define your value proposition for that audience. And so then that is saying, and then on this channel, you can expect weekly videos to help you do this. The value proposition could also be weekly videos to help you forget about work and laugh a little bit. Dependable comedy or something, just a consistent. What is the value proposition of a sitcom or a drama series on TV? That's an entertainment. So is it to inspire people? Is it to give information, education, motivation, inspiration, maybe a mix of all the above? What's definitely popular these days is a term called edutainment, realizing that because of how much content there is in the world, it's not good enough usually to just educate. You also want to entertain. What does that mean? Just put your personality in there. Think about illustrations. Think about what you can do with video editing. But even if you start simple, really thinking about what kind of value are you going to deliver? And value is what wins, period. You want to start putting out consistent, strategic, valuable content. I mean, if you can do that on YouTube, you know who your target audience is, and you know your value proposition, and then you just put out consistent, strategic, valuable content over the long haul, then you will build a brand that makes an impact, makes a difference, and grows.
Yeah, makes sense. How is your team right now? Do you have a very large team? Do you still edit your own videos?
Our team's been growing. Our team's about 3 main people. Then we have an intern and then a couple contractors. And so it's a small team.
Small, very small. Yeah.
Yep. About 90% of the editing is done by one of the team members, Omar. And I still do about 10%. But at the end of the day, I was doing all the video editing through all the side hustle season, full-time jobs and clients, side work or like side projects, and then trying to just grow my YouTube influence on the side. And it wasn't growing that fast. When you only have a few hours a week and not even every week to do it, you just do what you can when you can, because it's always good to be working on your dream job, even while you have a day job. And so Think Media started in 2010, but it took off in really pretty much 2016, right at the beginning or towards the end of 2015. And one of the reasons it took off was because I did prime the post. I didn't start from scratch. I had been spending years of just doing it whenever I could. And even to give you numbers, from 2010 to October 2015, Think Media had grown to 16,000 subscribers. Pretty good. But from October 2015 to the end of 2016, so in about a year's time, it grew to about 150,000 subscribers.
Mind blowing.
So it was a 10x year.
That's amazing. Wow.
Part of that was also just going all in, though. I mean, I was at a point where I jumped off. The reason I had a jump off time, though, was because I was always working on my dream job while I had a day job, chipping away, getting some momentum, proof of concept, earning a little bit of income online. So I thought, okay, well, now I've got proof of concept that I can earn $100. If I just did this all in, a little bit of serendipity, a little bit of hustle, a little bit of let's see what happens, then I could scale this up. One of the biggest mistakes I see entrepreneurs make when they want to make that jump is they could be working on their side thing while they have a other main thing, and getting it to a place where jumping off still takes faith. It still has a risk, but it's not irresponsible because you've proved it out and you have proof of concept about your idea for when you launch.
Right. Let's talk about ranking for beginners, I guess. What are some of the most important tips for ranking?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing to step back is let's define a few things. What even is ranking? And fact number one people need to know is that YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. So Most people don't know that. They don't view it that way because, or you would think, okay, Google is usually where I go for information if I have a question. Well, people around the world are second to Google. They're going to YouTube. And this is growing more and more because I don't know, maybe we're lazy, maybe video is just awesome. But if I know it's true for me too. I was right now at the time of recording, it's kind of around the holidays, around Black Friday. And 10 years ago, I probably would be reading blogs, looking for the latest Black Friday deals and these types of things here in the US. Now I'm watching videos and I'm doing it as I do other things. Maybe Sonia and I are eating, or I'm just sitting down for lunch or something, and I'm catching up on some content on video. So video is people's preferred content format of choice, and it's very, very powerful. And so number one, YouTube's a search engine. Number two, for entrepreneurs, your target audience is asking questions. They're typing things in. How to save money on your taxes, how to stay motivated, what's the best camera for YouTube, how to do meal prep on a budget, how to lose belly fat without dieting, and a million other questions, the same as people go to Google. And so people ask, is my target audience on YouTube though? Susan, the CEO, just announced that YouTube has over 1.5 billion active users that are logged in every month, watching over an hour of content per day. That's crazy. So YouTube is alive and well. Half of the internet, half of the active people on the internet are using YouTube, and in a major way. So your target audience is there, your potential customers, fans, and audience is there. But the way you want to get in front of them is you want to know, what is it they're searching for? What are the questions they're asking? What are those terms that they're typing into that search bar? And that comes into where if someone types in that question and your results, your video shows up on the other side, that's a ranked video. And what you want to do is you want to rank on the first page of YouTube, hopefully the top spot, but even any of those spots, that is prime real estate. Every business knows that if their website ranks on Google, that it can be life-changing. And it similarly can be life-changing on YouTube as well. So ranking for beginners, it probably goes to maybe just the biggest mistakes that I see. Number one is just not labeling and titling your videos in a way that humans would be searching for it. To be honest, here'd be a bad way to title your video. If you titled it The Stellar Life, this is the episode that gets real.
What? No.
Like that's the title.
That's horrible.
Well, nobody knows that. Now, if they already know you, and sure, you can grow your subscribers. And if you had an email list and social media, there's plenty of people who maybe are celebrities already and they can grow their channel by just sending they have traffic for other reasons. Then you could throw out a title like that. But that title is not what people are searching for. Better would be things you're already doing. I mean, some of your past episodes, how to turn your low carb, gluten-free diet into a delicious lifestyle. So you could start searching for and titling your videos like that. Well, people who are researching gluten-free, low carb, then your videos can show up on the other side. But you really want to make sure that you title your video right. You fill out the description with similar searchable, they're called keywords. And these would be the things people are typing, and then the tags. And then the other mistake, number two, is number one, the mistake is just titling your video completely wrong, making it basically impossible for anyone to ever find. The second big mistake people make is they actually shoot their video first, and then they try to optimize it later.
Ah, that's a big one. I
It's
do that
huge.
sometimes.
It's like, what do I want to talk about today? You talk about it, and then you sit down to YouTube and you go, okay, what am I going to title it? The reverse is start with YouTube and start with, what does my target audience want? What are they searching for? And a power tip here is if you go to the YouTube search bar and you just start typing, everyone's probably seen this before. Same thing happens on Google. YouTube and Google, which by the way, YouTube is owned by Google, they finish your sentence. Have you ever seen that before?
All the time, yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you type in low carb, for instance, I just typed in low carb, but now I'm going to see a couple predictions. It's finishing my sentence. So it's saying low carb diet, low carb meal prep, low carb recipes, low carb breakfast, low carb vegan. Well, these are ideas. And those predictions that are showing up in that YouTube search bar, those are in order of how popular they are. So low carb diet or low carb meal prep is very popular. What's crazy is if I type that in and I'm putting another space after it, now I'm finding even more predictions. So now I'm seeing low carb meal prep for the week, low carb meal prep for weight loss, low carb meal prep on a budget. Now we're really getting into some strong video ideas.
I like the idea of adding a space. I just did that. It's it's cool.
And then it shows you more stuff.
Yeah.
And you should spend, you don't want to, you could do this just for a second. Like, even if you spend 5 minutes doing this, you're going to be 95% or 99. You'll be ahead of 99% of the population who doesn't know this, even as they're approaching YouTube. But now you haven't shot a video that is just random and trying to make it fit into that exact phrase. What you want to do is then create a video that is exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would recommend that in the beginning of the video, if this was the idea, you might say something like, are you looking for low carb meal prep ideas to help you lose weight? Well, awesome. Because in this video, I'm going to be sharing my 3 favorite recipes coming up. And right at the hook of the video, right at the beginning of that video, you now think through the logic of what a human would be doing, your target audience who doesn't know you yet. And you're in this journey of developing know, like, and trust with them. They're discovering you. They're getting to know you. So they sit down. They type in low carb meal prep for weight loss. Your video ranks. They click on it. Now, still, they haven't bought in yet because now they're going to watch it for a few seconds to see if they're in the right place. That's where a lot of people lose and why their videos don't stay ranked because, again, they shot their video first without actually knowing how it should be positioned, exactly the nuanced thing that it's going to be about. And that's another power tip. If you just try to rank for low carb, good luck. It's really vague. What does that even mean? It could go a lot of different directions. But low carb meal prep for weight loss is now a better title. And we call that long tail keywords, or ranking for like long tail titles or headings or headlines. Mm-hmm. And so now you could come up with a list of ideas based on research first and then shoot your videos, and you're going to be a lot further ahead.
Do you know of answerthepublic.com?
I don't actually.
It's a cool website where you enter a keyword and then you get the questions. If you go over right now, you go to answerthepublic.com and you, let's say, carb, and it get questions. I can get all the questions in this graphic or in data. Who carb loads? Who carb diet? Who should carb cycle? Who is carb cycling for?
I love that. So yeah, more ideas. Tools like that are so good to really get into like how people could be speaking, what words, what language they're using, all those types of things. And then the third tip is knowing some of the things that YouTube values the most. The biggest mistake, or one of the big mistakes I see people make on YouTube, is they think that views matter most or subscribers. Because that's what we all want, right? We all want 1 million views. We all want to get all these big subscribers. Well, YouTube made a change, and you actually could see it a few years back in what they measured success by. And if you go into your analytics, you can see it, and it'll actually, subscribers is the lowest metric. It's important. The next one is views, but the highest one, and this is the thing to key on here, right? This tip is minutes.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
YouTube tracks minutes, and the phrase to remember is that minutes matter most to YouTube. Here's why. In the past, when people were just about views and when YouTube was just measuring views, well, you could do different things to game the system. You maybe either could just buy views, or you could just put a celebrity in your thumbnail, trick people with the title, and just get a lot of people there. And then what they do is they watch a few seconds and they go, oh, I was tricked, and they leave. But you could still maybe get some awareness and get a lot of views. But what YouTube realized was that was meaningless. There was no connection there. There was no depth there. The viewer was let down if they were deceived in some way by just tricking people into getting views. But what they realized was that one view might only be 1 second, but a minute is at least, of course, 60 seconds. So one view at a minute could be 60x more impactful than just a trick view that only lasts for a second. And the reason this is important, and the reason why YouTube shows you that metric and wants you to get minutes, is because they're in business as well. They need to make money, and they make money through advertising, and they want to compete with traditional mediums like television, Netflix, whatever, and where people are binging content. They're watching long viewing sessions, hours of content, or an hour at a time, or 30 minutes at a time. YouTube didn't want to just be for cat videos and viral videos that are 2 minutes or 30 seconds. They wanted real substance. So if you could create compelling content that keeps people watching, you just need to remember that minutes matter most. And when you create valuable content that people want to watch and you get those minutes going up, then YouTube ranking your videos, your channel authority grows. It all is affected because of those minutes. And then the last tip there is that the other thing that YouTube loves is when you start sessions. What does that mean? It means that if you can send traffic to YouTube from people who are not on YouTube, and then people start watching videos on YouTube, YouTube will be in love with you. It makes sense. Kind of like anybody. Like it's like a local restaurant. If they're like, hey, if you can bring us customers, we will give you a coupon. You know what I mean? Like you'll be our favorite because they want people to come to their platform. YouTube's in the business of having people be on YouTube so they can have people watch more advertising. So if you can start sessions, how do you do that? Well, social media, by any means possible. Your email list, if you have one, you have definitely an advantage if you got a podcast. Hey, everybody, we're launching a new YouTube show. Go watch it this week. If you can start sessions, and here's what's crazy about a session. Number one, how do you start a session? It means you send out an email to your latest video. YouTube sees, whoa, a lot of people came from wherever they were on the internet to our platform to this individual's video. You could also do that through press and media, PR. If your video got featured in a blog, if it got featured on an industry related site, on a LinkedIn post. If you're sending traffic from outside the platform, then YouTube rewards you. But maybe that person watches your 5-minute video, but then maybe they fall into just a loop. We've all been there. And you start watching recommended videos, suggested videos. Maybe then they watch a second video from you, but then maybe they spend another hour on the platform watching other people's stuff. A portion of that session is credited to you.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
They call it your audience retention and actually the viewer session time on your content, but also just that total watch time in a session. So what's the point? The point is if you want to grow your YouTube channel, start ranking videos, grow your channel authority so more of your videos show up in suggested videos in other places, you want to put out that consistent content, but position your videos right. Number one, title them right. Then, of course, number two, actually research it first before you hit record. And then number three, start sessions. Use your other influence on other platforms. Do whatever you can. Hustle, call somebody, text somebody, depending on where you're starting. Get people to the platform and do that over the long haul and over a consistent basis, and YouTube will reward you.
Well, guys, Sean is the real deal. Honestly, he's like probably one of the best people out there that teach about YouTube, and he's got amazing technical information and a big heart. So if they want to learn from you and reach you, tell me a little bit about how can they find you?
Yeah, a couple places on YouTube. You could just type in the words think media, first word think, second word media. And if you search that, you'll see a lot of our content. That channel is all about the best tools. We didn't really get into it. Most people just need a smartphone, right? Your smartphone's good enough to start YouTube. Don't overthink it. It's really not about the production value. It's about the content value. However, subtle things like investing in a $12 microphone that'll plug into your smartphone, maybe a cheap lighting kit if you can't shoot during the day, or even just lighting really helps videos. It has a lot of tools there. Or if you want to get into different cameras, that channel is all about the best tools for creators, entrepreneurs that want to be creating content. And then our other channel, Video Influencers, first word video, second word influencers, is that weekly interview show. So if you want to hear more tips from different people in every niche, whether they're brick and mortar businesses, whether they're real estate, whether they're actually YouTubers and they're doing entertainment, fitness professionals and coaches, people from all different walks of life that have actually used video successfully. And we also touch on things like Facebook Live and just video of all kinds, because really it's across the board. You know, Cisco did a report that said by 2019, 80% of the internet is going to be video. And so this is absolutely an essential time to be learning video, studying video, yes, YouTube, but just video in general, video marketing. And so those two channels are really the best. And then I'm also very active on Twitter, Sean Cannell, SeanCannell, because you probably would have never been able to figure that out. So that is Sean Cannell on Twitter.
I wouldn't. I can't spell English ever.
Understood. And even people who can will not get that right. But yeah, so if people have questions, we're always just down to help in whatever way. And then probably the last thing is we do actually have, obviously we cover a lot here, but we have a free masterclass that goes into depth about some of these things at tubemasterclass.com, TUBE masterclass.com. untitled.com. And that is a full training, hour long, and it's like over my shoulder. You can see some screenshots, some real data, more depth. If you would say, I do want to leverage the power of the second largest search engine in the world, the number one video platform in the world, you should be. YouTube is definitely a place to have a presence for every entrepreneur. There's a lot of great training that'll get you a jump start and get you up and running quickly, getting results on YouTube at tubemasterclass.com. And that's totally free.
Wonderful, wonderful. Sean, thank you so much. It was awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for this great interview.
Thank you. The honor is all mine. Love what you're doing and how you're inspiring people, helping people. And thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on my mission to light people up and change lives around the world. I hope today's conversation inspires you to step up, go after the life of your dreams, and be who you want to be. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go to stellarlifepodcast.com for show notes, transcripts, and other cool stuff. And please subscribe, review, and help spread the word by sharing us on Facebook and Twitter. Have a lovely day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.